I used to see her almost every morning, though we never planned it that way. The corner laundromat wasn't special. Half the machines rattled, the coffee vending machine made everything taste faintly of soap, and the fluorescent lights gave everyone a washed-out look. Still, she always carried herself like she belonged somewhere else, somewhere softer. I'd nod, sometimes smile. She'd return it barely, like she was saving the real smile for something that mattered. That morning, I sat slouched in a plastic chair, scrolling through old messages I never sent. My thumb hovered over one draft, just a simple, "How've you been?" to a college friend I hadn't spoken to in months. I didn't send it. I never did. The machine beeped, startling me out of the loop. When I looked up, she was there, across from me, folding a stack of clean towels with slow precision. She caught me watching. "You're always here on Thursdays," she said, not looking up from the towel in her hands. I cleared my throat. "Yeah. It's cheaper before noon." Her mouth tugged into the faintest grin. "Practical. I like that." I felt my face warm, which was ridiculous. I wasn't 16. But the way she said it made me straighten in my chair, as if I'd done something worth noticing. The hum of the dryers filled the silence. She folded the last towel, smoothed it once with her palm, then finally met my eyes. They lingered there a little too long. Long enough that I had to glance away, pretending to check if my load was done. "Coffee machine still broken?" she asked. I laughed quietly. "It works, but I wouldn't call what it makes coffee." She chuckled, low and tired, like she wasn't used to laughing but let herself anyway. "Noted." The machine beeped again, and I busied myself with pulling damp shirts into my basket. My hands fumbled more than they should have. She stood there, watching like she was about to say something, but didn't. Instead, she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, picked up her folded stack, and walked past me toward the door. I thought that was it. Another small exchange. Another almost. But when she reached the doorway, she hesitated. Turned back. "You live in the building next to mine, right?" she asked. "Yeah. 2 doors down." Her eyes flickered down at my basket, then back at me. She looked like she was working something out in her head. Finally, she said softly but clear, "Maybe next time, don't settle for soap-flavored coffee." And then she left. The door swung shut, leaving me with the buzz of machines and the faint warmth of her words. I sat there longer than I needed to, my shirts half folded, my phone screen still glowing with the unsent draft. I didn't send it. Instead, I opened a new one. Typed her building number. Paused. Outside, I could hear the faint sound of her footsteps fading on the wet pavement. When the message finally came through, not from me, but from her, it was just one line. "If you're not busy later, I make real coffee." I stared at the screen, heartbeat steady but louder somehow, and realized Thursday mornings weren't going to be so ordinary anymore. Her apartment smelled faintly of cardamom and something floral I couldn't place. It wasn't the kind of space I usually found myself in. Books stacked on side tables, a half-finished puzzle on the counter, a row of mugs that didn't match. Lived in, but carefully so. She handed me a mug without asking how I liked it. "This one doesn't taste like soap," she said, settling into the armchair across from me. I took a sip. It was strong, earthy, better than anything I'd made for myself. "You weren't kidding," I said. She smiled, but it was the kind that faded before it really landed. She folded her legs underneath her, like she was bracing for something. For a while neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't heavy, just present, the kind that makes you aware of every small sound. My spoon against the ceramic. The faint hum of the refrigerator. Her fingers tapping once against her knee. "You're quieter than I expected," she said finally. I looked up. "Expected? I mean, I've seen you with friends outside. You laugh louder than this." She traced the rim of her mug with her thumb. Here, you're different. I shifted in my chair. Maybe I just don't want to say the wrong thing. That earned me the softest exhale, almost a laugh. Wrong according to who? I didn't answer right away. I thought of the draft messages in my phone. The way my mother still texted me reminders about paying bills, as if I were half my age. The way this woman, my neighbor, mid-40s, the kind who folded her laundry like it mattered, was sitting across from me, watching too closely. Her gaze softened. You're thinking too much. I almost told her she was right. Instead, I said, Do you always invite your neighbors in for coffee? Her mouth curved, but not in amusement. No. Not really. She paused, then added, Not ever. That admission sat between us. More telling than either of us intended. The risk of it prickled under my skin. She was older, not just older, but established. Divorced, I remembered hearing in passing months ago. Someone who had lived through more than I could name. And me, just starting, still folding my life into something that resembled order. I set my mug down, fingers lingering on the handle. Why me? I asked before I could stop myself. Her eyes flicked to mine, steady, unflinching. Because you don't look at me like I'm finished. The words landed hard, quiet but unshakable. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. Instead, I leaned forward, pretending to reach for the sugar jar on the table. My hand brushed hers as she slid it closer, either of us pulling away as quickly as we should have. A nothing gesture, really? Just skin against skin for less than a second. But I felt the echo of it long after. Later, walking back to my place, I tried to convince myself it didn't mean anything. But as I shut my door, mug warmth still lingering on my palms, I realized I'd stopped thinking about wrong things, and started thinking about what it would feel like if her hand hadn't moved at all. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The rain came suddenly that night, the kind that blurred streetlights into streaks of amber. I hadn't meant to see her. I was only stepping out for groceries. But when I rounded the stairwell, she was there, struggling with a bag of oranges splitting at the seam. Here. I caught the bag before it burst, fruit rolling against the landing. Our hands collided again, more clumsy than before. Thanks, she said, breath caught. The damp from her umbrella darkened her sleeve, her hair sticking in uneven strands against her cheek. I followed her inside without much thought. She didn't stop me. Her living room was warm against the storm outside. She set the groceries down, brushing hair out of her face. I could hear the rain drumming against the balcony window. You always show up when it rains, she said softly, half to herself. I smiled, unsure. Coincidence. She gave me a look that said she didn't believe that. Or maybe didn't want to. We sat, me on the edge of the couch, her across, peeling the ruined net bag apart. An orange rolled between us, stopping at my foot. I picked it up, turned it in my hand. You live alone? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Her hands paused. For a while now. It's quieter that way. She didn't meet my eyes, focusing instead on separating the fruit. Too quiet sometimes. I wanted to say something, to fill that gap, but the words tangled. My throat tightened. Before I could try again, a sharp knock rattled the door. She stiffened. I saw it, the quick lift of her chin, the tightening of her fingers on the orange rind. Through the peephole, a voice carried, You left your mail in the wrong box again. A neighbor. Her shoulders dropped, but the moment was broken. She opened the door just wide enough to take the envelope, her smile polite, practiced. I stayed seated, suddenly aware of how out of place I looked, damp hoodie, restless hands, her space. When she shut the door again, the silence wasn't the same as before. Heavier. I set the orange back on the table. I should probably stay, she interrupted. Too quickly. Then softer. Just until the rain slows. I sat back down. My pulse steadied, then rose again when she moved closer, dropping into the cushion beside me instead of the chair. The distance shrank, her knee almost touching mine, the faint scent of cardamom lingering. Either of us spoke. The television screen across the room reflected us faintly, two shapes angled toward each other, but not quite touching. Her hand hovered near the blanket on the couch arm. Mine, on my knee, shifted just enough that the space between us felt unbearable. Her eyes flicked to mine, then down, then back again. A breath caught. My chest leaned forward, unthinking. But she turned her head at the last second, reaching instead for the blanket, draping it over her lap. "Cold," she murmured. And that was it. The moment dissolved. We sat there with the storm outside, close enough to feel the heat of each other's skin, but not close enough to cross the line we'd both almost forgotten was there. We ended up outside together one evening, either of us planning it. The rain had cleared, leaving the sidewalks dark and shining, puddles catching streetlight like broken glass. She carried a grocery bag. I had nothing but my hands shoved deep into my jacket pockets. We fell into step without speaking. Our buildings were only a block apart, yet the walk stretched, as if both of us were slowing down on purpose. "You're quiet again," she said after a while. I shrugged. "So are you." A smile ghosted across her face, brief, like she knew I'd borrowed her own trick and thrown it back. We reached the bench by the bus stop, empty, damp but still inviting. She set the bag down and sat. After a beat, I sat too, leaving a careful space between us. Her fingers rested on the wood beside her, not far. The way they drummed once, then stilled, made me notice my own hands too much. "I shouldn't keep doing this," she said finally. I turned. "Doing what?" She exhaled long through her nose. "Inviting you in. Letting you stay. Making coffee that isn't just coffee." The words dropped heavy between us, though her tone stayed level, like she was reading off a list. I tried to laugh it off. "It's just coffee." Her eyes cut to mine, sharp. "Don't do that." I froze. "It's not just coffee," she continued softer. "And you know it." The street light above us flickered, humming faintly. My throat tightened with words I couldn't push out. She looked away first, toward the puddle at her feet. "You remind me of when I still thought things could start over. Clean. Before all the wrong decisions piled up." I swallowed hard. "And that's bad? It's dangerous." Her voice cracked, just slightly, but she steadied it fast. "Because you'll go on. You're 20-something. You have time. Her hand flattened against the bench. "I don't." Something in my chest lurched. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but the words jammed in my throat. Instead, I said, "You don't feel finished." That made her look at me again, sharply. And for a moment, her face softened in a way I'd never seen, like a wall easing, stone by stone. Neither of us moved. My knee brushed hers by accident. She didn't pull away. The night hummed. Cars passed distantly. My pulse beat loud enough that I wondered if she could hear it. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Tell me, honestly, what do you want from me?" The question hung there, raw and exposed, the air between us taut like a thread about to snap. And I couldn't answer. Not yet. The next few days I didn't see her. Not at the laundromat. Not in the hallway. Not on the usual walk from the bus stop. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then it stretched 3 days, 4, and the silence felt deliberate. On the 5th night, I passed her building. Her lights were on. A shadow moved across the window. For a moment, I almost knocked. But then I noticed another detail. 2 mugs sitting on the balcony rail, steam curling in the cool night air. One of them wasn't hers. My chest tightened, though I told myself it didn't matter. Neighbors. Friends. A sibling. Anyone. But the thought didn't stick. The next morning, I found her at the mailbox. She looked different, hair tied back, jacket zipped high, eyes avoiding mine. "Morning," I said. She gave the faintest nod, almost like a stranger. "Morning." That was it. No joke about the broken coffee machine. No half smile. Just distance. I wanted to ask about the mugs, about her silence, about why she was folding into herself again after letting me see behind the curtain. Instead, I stood there with the envelope in my hand, watching her walk away without waiting for me to fall into step. The days stretched further. My routines hollowed out without her in them. I lingered in the laundromat longer than necessary, hoping she'd walk in. I checked my phone compulsively, though I had no reason to expect a message. One night, I typed one anyway. "You don't have to pull away. I get it. I just missed the coffee." I stared at it, thumb hovering over send. But I deleted it before the screen dimmed. Later that week, I overheard a piece of truth I hadn't known. Two neighbors talking by the stairwell, their voices carrying. "Her son's back in town. Visiting. Surprised her." Son. The word landed like a stone. Pieces shifted in my head, the mugs, her sudden silence, the way she couldn't meet my eyes. It wasn't betrayal. It wasn't even rejection. Just another wall, taller than the rest. A wall I hadn't known was there. That night, I sat in the laundromat long after my clothes were done, the hum of machines steady around me. I stared at the empty chair across from me, the one she used to take, towels folded neat in her lap, and felt the space grow heavier by the minute. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. And when I finally left, the chair was still empty, the air still carrying the faint echo of her laugh that hadn't really been mine to begin with. It was late when I saw her again. Not at the laundromat, not on the street, but at her own doorway, fumbling with her keys. The hallway was hushed, most of the building asleep, only the buzz of a distant light filling the silence. She looked up when she noticed me standing there. For a second, either of us moved. "You've been gone," I said, the words heavier than I meant. Her mouth tightened, a flicker of apology in her eyes. "My son. He was here." I nodded. "Yeah. I figured." She hesitated, then pushed the door open but didn't step inside. Instead, she leaned against the frame, shoulders slouched in a way that made her look younger, but more tired too. "I thought it would be easier if I just—" She trailed off, lifting a hand and letting it fall. "If I pulled back. And was it?" My voice came out softer than I felt. Her laugh was short, almost bitter. "No." The quiet settled again. I shifted, not sure what to do with my hands, my weight, my pulse that felt too loud in the narrow space. Finally I said, "You don't have to protect me from this." Her eyes caught mine, sharp, searching. "You think that's what I'm doing? Isn't it?" She shook her head slowly. "No. I'm protecting myself." The honesty of it made my chest ache. She looked down at her keys, turning them over in her palm like they might offer an answer. "I don't know how to let someone in anymore," she admitted. Her voice was quiet, raw, the kind of confession that slips out only when the night is too still to hide it. I took a step closer. Not much, just enough to close the draft between us. "Then start small." Her breath caught. "Like this," I said, lifting my hand. I didn't touch her, not yet, just let it hover close enough that she could feel the choice was hers. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she set her keys on the small table by the door and placed her hand over mine. No flourish, no tremor. Just steady warmth pressing into my palm. The sound of the building shifted, pipes knocking, someone's TV flickering faintly through the wall. Ordinary life went on. But in that narrow hallway, the air thickened with the weight of what she wasn't saying, and what she finally allowed herself to show. I met her eyes. So, what now? She didn't answer with words. Just a small smile, tired but real, her thumb brushing once across my knuckle like it meant more than anything else she could have said. Okay, she whispered. And for the first time, the silence between us felt like something we were sharing, not something we were avoiding. Weeks folded into months, and the silence between us didn't return. Not the old kind, at least. There were still pauses, we were still ourselves, but now they had weight, not emptiness. She didn't invite me in every day. I didn't expect it. Sometimes it was just a shared cup of coffee before work, her in her robe, me still half asleep, both of us pretending the world wasn't waiting outside. Sometimes it was an evening walk to the bench by the bus stop, grocery bags between us, talking about nothing in particular. Little things began to stitch us together. She learned I always checked my phone at 8:47 a.m., not for anyone in particular, just because I had gotten used to waiting for messages that never came. So at 8:47, without fail, she'd slide a fresh cup of black coffee across the table and say, "Your daily reminder you're not invisible." In return, I kept her thermos filled whenever she left early for work, even if I had to run down the hallway barefoot to hand it off before the elevator doors closed. She never said thank you out loud, but the way she tapped her thumb against the lid twice before walking away became our own language for it. Her son came and went. I met him once, briefly. She didn't introduce me as anything, and I didn't ask her to. Later, when she caught my uneasy glance, she only said, "Not everything needs explaining." It was enough. The laundromat, where it started, became less about chores and more about routine. We didn't sit across from each other anymore. We sat side by side, folding shirts into imperfect stacks, letting our elbows brush without moving them away. One night, after walking back from the bench, she stopped outside her door and said, almost absently, "I never thought I'd like Thursdays so much." I smiled, not needing to answer. Because I felt the same. It wasn't perfect. Some mornings she was distant, caught in old memories I couldn't reach. Some nights I wondered if the difference in our years would catch up to us, tilt everything sideways. But then she'd glance at me over a mug, or I'd hand her an orange without saying a word, and whatever storm hovered quieted into something I could hold. I don't know when it shifted from chance meetings to this, a life that felt less like waiting and more like living. Maybe it was the first time she let me stay past midnight, sitting in silence while the rain hit the balcony. Maybe it was earlier, when she told me I didn't look at her like she was finished. Now, when I think about us, I don't think of unfinished sentences. I think of how she folds a towel in half, then again, smooths it once with her palm, patient, deliberate, complete. And I think, that's what this is. Not grand. Not dramatic. Just complete. Sparkles, did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?